everyone, and welcome back to Binge Battle. My name is Mark Ellis. I'm your host, and I'm thrilled to be here, particularly on today because it's a show that I came to a little later. I wasn't watching this week to week like our two guests, I believe, were ever since it debuted seasons and seasons, and maybe a decade ago. Dexter is the show we're talking about. We're excited about Dexter right now in 2021, going into 2022, because we have Dexter New Blood that has just premiered its first episode. So we're excited to follow that. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, along with some other things that maybe our competitors didn't love about Dexter. But we're here for Binge Battle, and here is how it's going to work. We have competitors. They're going to have their opening argument for whatever topic I present with them. They're each going to get a rebuttal and then a final argument. Now, if you're a fan of the show or you're joining us for the very first time, fair warning, spoilers are in play here. So if you have not yet seen Dexter, if you want to get into Dexter, maybe you come back to visit us a little bit later after you've done so. Or maybe this is the show that you might hear some spoilers, but it gets you into wanting to see Dexter. I had some of it ruined for me, but I watched it and I binged it and I loved it. And so I'm excited to talk with our two very special guests today here on Binge Battle. And joining me today for this epic binge battle is none other than the author of The Way We All Became the Brady Bunch. And she is also a noted TV critic. You can follow her on Twitter and Instagram at TV Screener. It's Kim Potts. Hello, Kim. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, guys. I'm excited to be here and talk Dexter.
I am so happy to have you. When did Dexter first come on your radar? Because I had people telling me since it really debuted that it's a show I need to watch, and I just never really got around to doing it until much later in the game. How about you? Were you initially on the Dexter train, or did you have to play some catch up?
I was initially on the Dexter train. I mean, how can you not watch if you love, it was definitely among the prestige drama of the time. And how can you not, if you've watched The Sopranos and all of those other great dramas, how can you not watch a drama about a serial killer who kills serial killers?
It's certainly everything that we love in modern TV, right? Because it's great drama. Exactly. And it's also, it's got that true crime serial killer element that I know everybody enjoys watching these days. And I know that that is always at the top of the list for our other special guest today, who you know from the upcoming film Pretty Boy, which you can catch next year. She also has a Disney Plus project coming out. You've already seen her on shows like Criminal Minds and NCIS. It is Grace Hancock. Hello, Grace. Welcome to the show. And the particular binge battle that you're working with today, it seems like this show is custom made for you and all of the things that you enjoy watching.
Of course. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I do love this show. I love murder. I just like dark stuff. I'm very, very happy to be here to discuss murder. So thank you for having me.
When did you first stumble upon this show that does feature murder?
Yeah, well, yeah, I did. I was also watching it in real time. I remember it coming out, and I feel like in my circle at the time, which was unfortunately very conservative, it was a very controversial show, which made me love it even more. And I remember really being like, oh, this is really dark and really great and really loving it. I was like, and all the other people who really loved it were like my people. So it was definitely something that I watched in real time. And also Michael C. Hall is also a redheaded vegan. So I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I love it. I still love it today.
Oh, there you go. It's everything that we love all in one program. So I do want to ask you all about Dexter New Blood at the end of the show, after we have our fun little binge battle here. And then I also want to get your hot takes on some things about Dexter. But these are all questions for later. And then we also have your streaming picks that you're going to recommend to everybody. That's all coming later in the show. But right now, it's the binge battle. And the way that it works here is each of you are going to get a minute once I present a topic. You have a minute to choose whoever or whatever you like from that topic the best. You're going to debate. You're going to argue your point with fervor. But again, it's competitive to a point. There is going to be a winner at the end. We're just here to celebrate Dexter. We're not here to take the gloves off. And so I'll give you a topic. You get a minute. And then once your opponent does their minute, you get a 30-second rebuttal. Your opponent gets the same. And then we each have a final statement. It'll be around 10 seconds to keep it nice and tidy. So with all of that, we introduced Kim first. Grace was second. So now, Grace, you have the right to go first in round number one, if you're both ready to go.
100%. Let's do it.
Let's go.
All right, then. Topic number one for our Dexter binge battle is best villain, but it comes with a caveat because we all just love the Trinity Killer so much. So the Trinity Killer is off the board here in round number one. Your best villain, not named the Trinity Killer. Well, I mean, you can't have a great show without great villains. So Grace Hancock, you are on the clock in round number one. Who is the best villain in all of Dexter?
Well, I mean, there's so many great options, but if I have to pick my very favorite, I'm 100% voting for Hannah McKay. She's smart, she's cunning, she's slippery, she has money stashed away. She's evaded prison for a very long time. She's a successful flower entrepreneur. She's very, very fearless. Her literally facing death, her responses, do what you got to do. If that's not the most metal thing I've ever heard in my life, I don't know who you're hanging out with. She doesn't put up with anything. She sees what she wants and she takes it, which I can totally respect. But the bottom line with Hannah McKay is that we're absolutely rooting for her. We want them to end up together. She's a skinny white blonde woman, which we know Dexter loves. And she has the edge that Lumen was totally missing. And the bottom line is that her and Dexter are totally cut from the same cloth. This is his best case scenario. He's never going to do better than Hannah McKay, in my opinion.
I feel like you have matchmaking in your future. I don't know if you've looked into that, but it felt nice to have you. It seems like you're looking out for both of them and you want them to remain together.
Yeah, weirdly, yes. You're totally rooting for two serial killers, which is the beauty of the show.
It's probably safe for society to pair serial killers with each other. So now let's go to Kim for your counter. 1 minute on the clock. Kim Potts, who is the best villain in Dexter?
It is a hard choice because they were all pretty great. I mean, the show cast well and it wrote those villains well. But I'm going to have to pick Miguel Prado, who was played by Jimmy Smits. And part of the reason I think that he was such a great villain is because we don't see Jimmy Smits as a villain. We've seen him in LA Law and NYPD Blue. And he even goes on to play the pimp with a heart of gold and Sons of Anarchy. So it helped that we weren't used to seeing him as a villain. So when he did, present himself as this super villain, who first became Dexter's, probably the first real true friend Dexter thought he had ever had, and so much so that he had him be the best man at his wedding to Rita, and they were couple friends with Miguel and his wife. But of course, in the end, as Harry had told him, Dexter was never going to be able to have a true friend who knew him, really knew what he did. And that turned out to be true. And also, of course, spoiler alert, Dexter has to kill him because he, has not only is not truly his friend, but he's been using him because he wants to become a serial killer himself. And he was in the right place, and he did definitely learn some tips and tricks from Dexter. But it wasn't meant to be for Dexter to have Miguel as his friend. And but Jimmy Smits made a great villain, and that was it provided that chance for us to see that Dexter really did, in spite of not having a lot of friends and keeping himself at a distance. He really did appreciate having a friend when he thought he did. And that was another side of Dexter that we hadn't seen at that point.
This is why I love this as topic number one, because it's villains, it's friends, it's lovers. So Grace, why would you say that Hannah makes a better villain in your mind than someone like a Miguel Prado?
I think it's more just that I was never really rooting for Miguel in the way that I was rooting for Harry or for Hannah and for Harry, but I felt like he just wasn't likable enough for me to be as invested. I felt like immediately, my first thought wasn't, oh, good, Dexter has a buddy. My first thought was like, this feels shady. Like, I don't trust Leia's dad for anything. Like, I didn't like it. He's very like overbearing, like kind of has like this nervous energy that's very impulsive. He didn't know what he was going to do. And Dexter's so subtle and subdued and so calculating. It was two very, very different energies. And they became friends way too quickly for me. He was like, hey, nice to meet you. Do you want to be my best man? And I was like, what? This feels weird. And I just didn't trust him. And he just wasn't likable enough for me. I was kind of almost immediately rooting for Dexter to take him out, which I wasn't for Hannah.
Okay. So it just wasn't that likable quality that we do want in some of our villains, Kim. So why would you say Miguel makes it where Hannah doesn't?
Well, I actually cannot argue anything against Hannah. I think I also wanted them to get together. I mean, she's the person that Dexter trusted with his son in the end. Spoiler alert. So, you can't, I don't think that you can say anything against Hannah. Also, as Grace also said, she was right there on Dexter's level. I mean, I think that's why he fell in love with her, not just because he likes, that's definitely his type in a lot of ways, but also because he respected her. She was as smart, as clever, as capable of getting away with what she needed to get away with as he was. And I'm sorry, I feel like I'm arguing Grace's point now, but I can't argue against her point. So I would just, I think it's more a personal preference. I love Jimmy Smits, and I loved him playing this against type character for him. And I liked the fact that Dexter was finally having a friend. But I can't argue at all against Hannah. Great character.
And it really is why this is such a fun conversation too, is because with both of y'all's picks, it's like we're using someone that we want Dexter to find some happiness with, whether it's with a best friend or whether it's with someone that he's going to get between the sheets with. So the final statement first goes to Grace Hancock to support Hannah McKay as your favorite villain.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it is. It does, it is a testament to the show that we're always rooting for little Dexter to have a little girlfriend or a friend. But I just think at the end of the day, Hannah was more earned. They were more like connected on a deeper level. It was over time that they built the relationship. I felt like Miguel was just really rushed and too fast and furious, and then he was dead. And I was like, okay.
All right. And Kim, why is Miguel your personal preference for your favorite villain? Is it the Jimmy Smits factor? Is it the sort of twist as to who we thought we knew? We thought we knew you, Jimmy Smits.
Right. It's both. Yeah, there's definitely the Jimmy Smits factor. It's the twist, which I thought was a good one. Again, relative to the fact that we thought Dexter was finally having a best friend, not just a friend, but a really close. I mean, he, has these pseudo friends at work and the people that he pretends to be this normal guy for, and that they have these work friendships. But this was someone that he thought was a real friend who knew who he was and accepted it and actually wanted to join in, and someone he thought he could trust, which obviously is a big thing for Dexter too. He really can't trust pretty much anyone. So that was a big thing for him. I have to go back to what Grace said about little Dexter. Wouldn't that be a great little animated series? I mean, completely messed up, but it would be fun.
I would watch.
Hey, we have sitcom execs watching this. You greenlit young Sheldon. I don't know why we can't get young Dexter out there.
Young Dexter, I love it.
If nothing else, it would make a great comic strip. So young Dexter, will put that in the can. We want Dexter to have a friend. We want Dexter to have somebody that he's intimate with. And so it's a tough call for me because I love Jimmy Smits. I love seeing Jimmy Smits show up in anything. I'm like, hey, that's Jimmy Smits. When he shows up in Star Wars, I'm like, I don't think that's, I don't care if that's Bail Organa. I'm like, no, that's Jimmy Smits. That's the guy from NYPD Blue. And then you get to the fact that, like, by that season, though, season 3, I believe, I realized that, okay, Dexter's not really going to be, even if this friend might share a very dark hobby with Dexter, it's going to be tough for them to have that. With Hannah, it hit me differently simply because I really thought this was going to be something else. And I was excited about that. And so it was more of a heartbreak when it didn't go the way I wanted it to with the Hannah McKay storyline. So just by the skin of her teeth, and that's a weird way to say this based on the show Dexter, where we are analyzing things like skin and teeth. I think that Grace has the better villain for this round anyway. So Grace gets the point. Grace, you got a point. You can go home now if you want to.
Thank God. I'm finally going to win something, you guys. I'm feeling good about this.
You have a point and no one can ever take that away from you. And so now we do go to round number 2, which is our best season, the best season of Dexter, which is notorious for some great seasons and in the minds of a lot of fans, some not so great seasons. So we're going to kick off with you this time. Kim Potts, what is your favorite season of Dexter?
Well, I think we have to say that everybody probably agrees that 4 was the superstar season of the show. But so maybe this, I guess we're picking maybe our second favorite season. So I'm going to pick season 5 because it followed that amazing season 4 and that shocking ending. And I think what most people consider to be one of the best season endings ever, especially in the prestige drama world, which was should we say now? Was the death of
Go
Rita,
ahead. Yeah. We get a spoiler warning up top.
wife.
So whatever
Okay.
you want to say, we're all good.
So Dexter, the shocking death murder of Rita by the Trinity killer. And so Dexter is just completely beside himself. He's angry, he's raging, he doesn't know how to deal with this. He has guilt, of course. He thought that he had been able somehow to make this, kind of nice little life for himself that he didn't think was going to be possible. And then it was taken away by, he obviously blames himself. And then he kind of finds a way, though, in season 5 to deal with that by going after Jordan Chase, who was this horrible guy. He had this gang of friends who they found women to rape and torture. And Dexter made friends with one of them, Lumen, played by Julia Stiles. And he kind of finds in helping her get revenge on these awful people that he's sort of getting a little bit of revenge, kind of redeeming himself for his guilt over Rita's death. And, it was also a different side, I think, that we saw of Dexter, who didn't necessarily think of himself as capable of emotions, but obviously he had them over the death of Rita and again, his guilt and all of that. And then he finally got to work that out a little bit in helping Lumen get her own revenge against Jordan Chase and his pals. So it was a good story. And I think it was probably a tough season to write after that incredible 4th season. Where do you take him after that? And I think they did a good job. The writers did a good job.
Yeah, it was almost like, where do you go after that? Well, you turn inward, and we get a lot deeper and more layers to this character that we have come to know over the previous 4 seasons. So, Grace, your favorite season in the history of Dexter?
I mean, absolutely. And similarly, like, this is going to be like the nicest binge battle ever, because Miguel is a great villain. So I'm going to totally agree. Like, season 4 is fantastic, which is actually what I was going to talk about. But the interesting part is that I have very strong feelings about season 5, but I'm going to talk about season 4 first. If I had to pick a second favorite, I would probably say season 1. But number 1, hands down, again, like everybody can agree, there's just no fat to trim in season 4. It's such excellent storytelling. There's so much going on, but they're all really, really intentionally connected. It's not like there's no weird like fluff plot lines. Like, everybody comes back to Trinity. We have Quinn and Christine, we have Lundy coming back, heartbreaking, worst thing ever, so sad. And then obviously, John Lithgow is just incredible at everything, and his MO as a serial killer is super fascinating. Like, the whole Trinity that we find out is actually like a quadruple thing is just really like, obviously totally disturbing, but like in the best way possible. And you have this cool dynamic of Dexter kind of like admiring him and almost sort of like studying him. Like, how is he balancing this family life along with this serial killer life that Dexter at the time is really like kind of getting crushed under the weight under. And their kind of like cat and mouse game is very reminiscent of the Ice Truck Killer, because I feel like Trinity was the first time that we had another killer who was kind of like, they were on the same page. Like, Miguel was like, I'm a baby serial killer, but Trinity was like, I'm a veteran. Dexter's like, I'm a veteran, like, let's be friends. So there's a very like equal playing field that made it really interesting. It's just a really high energy season. It's a very well developed season. And of course, leading up to that insane finale that literally every time I watch, my jaw is just like on the ground through the end credits. Like, it's the next day, I'm still stunned. I have to go to my therapist. Like, and then of course, Harrison being found in a pool of blood, like just like his father before him is just like the most beautiful, terrifying, but like beautiful storytelling that just comes really full circle. There's just absolutely, there's just no fat to trim. It's maybe one of my favorite seasons of television ever, truly.
Yes, season 4, it gets the lion's share of the hype, and then I'll reserve my feelings about season 4 and 5 for after I have to make the very difficult judgment. But again, coming to it later might have impacted me differently than people who are watching it in real time. So, Kim, let's go back to you for season 5 and why maybe it didn't have the shocking reveals on a par with season 4, but it did bring a lot of other things to the table.
Yeah, it really did. Again, kind of that recognition by Dexter that he could feel things, that he was sad about and guilty about Rita's death, and that he could find a way to work that out a little bit. I mean, doing what he does best, of course, but and the fact that he could feel something for another woman. You know, he definitely had some feelings for Lumen. So yeah, I like that they continued that they didn't have, I mean, I think lesser writers probably would have had Dexter just, you know, go on a serial killing rampage of his own without involving, you know, someone else, and that he was helping this woman and all of these women that had been victims of Jordan Chase and his friends. I like that they, you know, gave us a little bit more of the inner Dexter and didn't just have him, you know, go off and be by himself again.
We got a lot of emotional depth to Dexter in season 5, but Grace, like you said, season 4, we just had so many fireworks.
Right. Yeah, I think also, like, again, like season 4 is such a tough act to follow. I almost would have liked, though, because, and I might even touch on this later with something else, but I feel like at the end of the day, with that relationship that they spent so much time building, and it was so subtle and it was so emotional, it was kind of like, you know, on a longer wavelength than season 4. But it ended up kind of like not having any payoff, which really upset me, like deeply, deeply inside. But also it's interesting because I actually would have preferred to see, you know, what is this? How does a serial killer become unchained more so than being a serial killer? Like, I didn't want him to go introspective. I wanted him to like talk being a serial killer on his best day. It's like, you're having this horrible tragedy. I wanted to see him go nuts. Like, I wanted him to go like full Deb and just like go down, like deep down into, I don't know what that says about me, but that's just what I wanted to see, because he's such a phenomenal performer. I would have loved to have seen how he tops being a serial killer on a good day.
All right, so now final statement time, supporting 2 very tough seasons to pick between. Season 5, Kim Potts, your final statement.
I will just say I think that it was a pretty amazing job that the writers did following season 4, which I agree is definitely one of the best seasons of Dexter, and as Grace said, one of the best seasons of TV drama ever. So I think that was a particularly tough act to follow, and I think they made good choices and gave us some good stuff.
All right, and Grace, supporting season 4.
Yeah, again, like it's definitely a super tough act to follow. I just think at the end of the day, maybe the contrast was a little bit too stark to go from so high to so like kind of mellowed out and like a little bit not flat, but because of the contrast, it just fell too flat for me in comparison.
And this is why it's such a tough call for me, because I have sympathy for everybody who watches TV like we all did in the old days, who just had, you saw an episode and then you had to wait another week to say what the hell was going to happen, as somebody who had the luxury of sitting in their ivory tower and just binging Dexter whenever I felt like it. I could watch an hour, I could watch 15 minutes, I could watch 9 hours in a row. It didn't matter to me. I saw these seasons a little bit differently. And so I did have season 4 hyped up for me a lot. And as much as I enjoyed a lot of that and all the twists and the reveals and everything, it just seemed like every episode we just got this huge major moment. Season 5 impressed me so much with what they were able to do with getting into the character of Dexter, because as we meet him in season 1, it's like this guy's cold and feels no emotion. The most emotion that we got out of Dexter for the most part was in flashbacks when he's thinking about how his old man was trying to sort of coach this thing inside his kid in the right way. And we saw a lot of that come out in season 5. And then the addition of Lumen and what that plot line entailed. I think it's an upset pick, but I think it's going to be my pick today. And so season 5 gets on another day, probably could have been season 4, but season 5 gets the call from me. And so Kim Potts ties Grace Hancock at the top. You each have a point. So you're both winners today. Congratulations. And now we just need to sort out who is the winner that's going to win today's show. So we move on to our third round here. And this is going to be a fun one because it is the favorite character with the qualifier that you can't pick, our boy Dexter Morgan. So you can't pick Dexter. You can't pick any little Dexters that might appear on Animaniacs sometime in the future. It has to just be a character from Dexter that is not named Dexter Morgan. Grace Hancock, we kick off with you with a minute on the clock.
I mean, obviously, I'm picking Deb absolutely a woman after my own heart. She's totally the heartbeat of the show. I think in a lot of ways, she's the heartbeat of Dexter. The humanity that she brings to this role is so tangible. It is so moving. Her performance is phenomenal. And Deb as a character is really strong. She's really flawed. She's really fleshed out, which is so nice to see in a female role, especially. And she totally makes her own rules. She's successful. She's hilarious. There's no like playing politics in the workplace. She does what she does. She's so unapologetic. And my favorite thing about Deb is that she never makes herself smaller to accommodate anybody around her, which is just one of my favorite traits in a human being or a character. And also, despite all the trauma that she's experienced, both before the show, her mother passing away as a teenager, her dad being totally preoccupied, totally emotionally unavailable to her, which she talks about a lot. And then also during the show, they're just like, here's the short stick. Here you go, Deb. Here you go, Deb. Here you go, Deb. In spite of all that, she has this huge heart that is just so full of this love for her brother that is so pure. And it's a moving character to see somebody go through all that and still be good, like truly, truly good. And she really is, even though obviously it's Dexter and we can't pick Dexter and it's called Dexter, she really is the hero of the show. And she really is a step further, the tragic hero of this show. And she is Dexter's most heartbreaking victim for sure.
Yeah, and we meet her so early on in the show, and we just developed this attachment to her right away. So it's a great. I mean, you can't pick Dexter, might as well take Deb. Kim Potts, you have another take for the best character not named Dexter Morgan.
I also love Deb very much, but I think this character I'm picking Angel, as he was called by LaGuerta, which is one of my favorite things about the show. It just made me laugh every time that she called him Angel. Yeah. We needed him, I think. He was that kind of good guy, even keeled. I mean, this is a show again about a serial killer who's killing serial killers. And we've got Deb, who we love, but she definitely has a lot of issues of her own to deal with. And there's also the fact that, Angel was also a good cop most of the time. He was a good guy throughout most of the show and a good cop. And we saw him be a good cop. And I think both of those things were important. The good guy, because again, there was so much craziness around us on the show. It was nice to have that kind of just even keeled good guy around all the time. And he was, a good friend to everyone that he worked with. He was annoyed by Mazuka and his creepiness about women, but that was appropriate. He should have been annoyed by that. Although Mazuka, I think you could also argue, was a great character, a creepy one, but a fun one. But I think it was also important that we saw someone who was definitely a good cop, because I think for some people, there was probably a question, like, should these people have the jobs they have? They have this serial killer right under their nose, but they have no idea, except for, of course, Dokes, but that didn't end well for him. But so, this is the Miami PD, but none of them have any clue what's happening right underneath their noses. So it was good, I think, to have this guy who we established as a good cop. So it was just, it wasn't a matter of these cops were clueless. In general, they were good cops. Dexter was just really good at what he did.
That's a great point. Yeah, Batista is a good cop, and we acknowledge him as that. So it's not a shortcoming of him as much as it is Dexter. It's just Gracie's just really good at killing people, and his sister doesn't get wise to it initially. And we're watching Deb, and we love their interaction so much. It's almost like we want to preserve that brother-sister relationship as long as we can.
Oh yeah, totally. And also, again, this is the nicest. Angel or Angel is absolutely in like my top 3 favorite characters. I really, really adore him. And actually, I mean, all the performances in the show are just like stupid good. Like the casting is just like everybody really brings like really excellent work. My only thing with Angel that makes me choose Deb over him a little bit is because I feel like the energy that he brings is a little bit boyish. I feel like we see him getting into bar fights. Like we see him smoking weed on the job. Like we see him cheating on his wife. He gets stuck with, he gets caught with sex workers. He marries his boss for a brief amount of time. Not great thinking. So I feel like we see him kind of have these kind of like boyish trip ups when we're like, we know that you know better. So it's almost like, okay, you're fine. You're like the Merry and the Pippin for now, but like, we got to deal with Aragorn over here, which is Deb. So I feel like it's just more of like the weight that Deb brings to the overall arc of this show is just a little bit heavier than Angel's, but he is a really great character. I love him.
And she's known Dexter for so long that we know what sort of relationship fiber they have developed over years and years. So, all right, Kim, your 30-second rebuttal defending Angel/Angel.
I think that the biggest thing that he brought to the show was just that good example that, that these people were good cops, that they weren't just bumbling fools who, were fooled by this guy that was doing these things right under their nose. It really was just that Dexter was that talented and that he had learned to use working at the Miami PD to his advantage to get away with things. But I cannot rebut anything about Deb, one of the best female characters in a drama series ever. Jennifer Carpenter's performance is impeccable. I mean, you really can't say anything against it. If we're going to talk about New Blood in a little bit, I think we can, we're seeing that again in the new series. She's amazing, continues to be. And it's funny, I interviewed Clyde Phillips, who was the showrunner for the first 4 seasons of Dexter, and he's now the showrunner for New Blood. And he said that even just having Jennifer Carpenter on set made Michael C. Hall embrace Dexter more, easily and in a more relaxed way. And it just made him more relaxed as, to have her on set. And I think that's, it's another compliment to her that, as you said, they know each other so well and so long as characters. And I don't know that the show is possible without Deb.
Yeah. Yeah. She reminded me, Grace, I'll let y'all get to your final statements in a sec, but the character of Deb, when we meet her, she reminded me of Judy Hopps from Zootopia. Just like ready to get out there, and it doesn't matter if you're just giving people parking tickets or you're solving real crime. Like she's in it for whatever you get to do here, and always has these great career aspirations. So the final argument here in this round goes to Grace first. Grace, once again, supporting Judy Hopps. Deborah Morgan.
I love a girl with the potty mouth. And look, I feel like if Dexter was a skeleton, Deb is truly the spine. Angel might be a hand, maybe the right hand, but she's still the spine.
Yeah.
And keeping with the Zootopia, I'm not going to say that Batista would be the sloth that's working at the DMV. I think there's some other characters that might more fit that line for Dexter. So, Kim, I'm going to give you the final argument here in round number 3 as far as the favorite character. Let's stump for your guy, Batista, one more time.
Angel was also very important, again, for us to believe that these people were talented cops who, weren't just being fooled by someone who was working with them and getting around them. And he absolutely, as Grace said, he made some missteps too. But, he was human, and we needed that kind of, again, straight-laced for the most part, straightforward, even-keeled kind of guy who got along with almost everyone for the most part. We needed that kind of character in this show of people with a lot of issues.
Yeah, and it was
absolutely.
I think it really helped us as the audience watching him react to Dexter, because there's moments in the show where Dexter is looking at a dead body or parts of a dead body, and he's just got that weird smile on his face, like, man, this is cool. And then Batista is usually the one looking back at him like, what are you? But he never suspects that it's Dexter. But we never pin that on Batista just because he is a good cop, and we needed that in the show so much because there's at least one other person at the precinct that doubts Dexter and thinks he's up to something. But Batista, we always he grounds the show so well for us.
Yeah.
But like really both of y'all said, Deb is just so important to have because that humanizes Dexter. So while Batista is there to make us feel like Dexter is just that good and that secret of a serial killer, Deborah makes us feel like her brother can actually become a human being at some point. It can actually show some emotion, can actually be a good brother, can be a good human being at points during the show. And so the way that both their storylines unfold, there's a lot of action that they both have to deal with. But I am going to give the W in this round to Deborah Morgan. She's just too important to the show. And I loved hearing that Kim, you almost supported Grace's argument there, which again, we're all just having fun here, but I loved hearing that about New Blood, that just having her on set made Michael C. Hall more like Dexter.
I know, it made me, I felt like I wanted to be on the set too. And you know, that they had that relationship was because we also know they were actually married off camera during the show, which was weird to find out as a fan at the time. And then of course there was the storyline where Deb developed feelings for Dexter. So there's a lot to this show on screen and off screen. But Jennifer Carpenter is again just so amazing. And we know, obviously, Michael C. Hall is and has been in everything he's done. I just love, as a fan of the show, to know that they still have that chemistry together, and that, you know, in real life, that is chemistry that they have together.
Well, folks, as we were about to kick off round number 4, wouldn't you know it? Tech snafus happen. It's almost like Dexter was in our system manipulating something. And unfortunately, one of our competitor, Kim Potts's computer had some sort of issue that we just were not able to resolve after multiple attempts. And so after talking it over with the powers that be here at Rotten Tomatoes, we figured what better way to continue to celebrate Dexter than by keeping Grace Hancock here. And Grace, first of all, congratulations by proxy. You are declared the winner of today's binge battle. It's got to feel great.
You know, I knew this day would come, and I knew I was going to win something, and I'm sad that it had to happen like this, but I'm going to take the win regardless. So thank you.
Well, you did have the lead when we were entering round number 4, 2-1, but I still want to talk about some of these questions with you, just because it's fun to revisit a show that now has literally new blood that's attracting a lot of new fans and getting more people to binge and go back and watch these classic seasons of Dexter, and maybe some not so classic seasons. And so that was kind of the topic of 4, is that we have all these shocking moments that we've had throughout the seasons of Dexter, some for better and some for worse. But if we were to play that round out, what would have been your most shocking moment in the history of Dexter?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I feel really strongly about this. For me, it hands down has to be Deb killing LaGuerta. That was absolutely, I didn't know that was going to happen literally until like the moment that it happened when she did it. Because, you know, Deb throughout this whole show is really, she's the moral compass. She's really the living Harry. And then as we see in New Blood, she's kind of, you know, replaces Harry in a way to Dexter. And this is her sacrificing all of her values, her identity. It seals her fate in a lot of ways, because this incident directly leads to her death, like directly leads to her, you know, horrible demise. And I think that this is also a huge shift, because we always knew that this day would come. We always knew it was never a question of Deb finding out who Dexter was, but nobody ever saw her not only accepting Dexter after a little bit of a rocky period, but then additionally protecting Dexter by taking out somebody. So it's like we see a lot of other times where Dexter's taking out a bad guy and Dexter's taking out a bad guy. Nobody ever saw a good guy taking out a good guy. Like I certainly did not. And it's a really, I mean, that scene lands painfully. Like her like cradling Maria's body is like, I mean, I get like misty. I mean, her performance is amazing. But I did not see that coming. It's my job.
Yeah, of the whole interaction, because LaGuerta just gives Debbie such a hard time right from the outset. And what did you make of that? Was that tough love for you and just making a rookie prove themselves? Or did you look at their initial relationship dynamic as she just is never going to be won over by this newbie?
Right. I did kind of see it. I did see warmth there. There definitely was a lot of tough love, but I think also like Dexter was kind of ahead of its time, having a woman of color being the lieutenant of this homicide in a very male dominated field, which I thought was really awesome. And then later being replaced by Deb. I think that there was a lot of tough love, but I think there was, you know, it was almost Maria being like, hey, this is not going to be easy. Like, I'm not going to make it easier for you because nobody else is either. So you either got to hit the ground running and kind of put on your big girl panties, because this is not going to be easy. And it certainly was not for either of them.
And so something else that wasn't easy, at least for fans to just be like, how do I not talk about this with everyone I've ever met, was the climax and I guess the big reveal of season 1. And this was going to be Kim's argument, was talking about who the ice truck killer actually is. Lo and behold, Dexter's brother. Just curious, how did that land for you?
One thing I was going to say to Kim, I love that reveal was great. I loved it. almost in a way see it coming a couple episodes before. I don't know that it was as shocking as Deb's killing of LaGuardia. So that was the only reason why I was kind of like, because it was all kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. Like I feel pretty good about that. But also I just felt like, even though, and again, and I love it, and season 1, other than season 4, is hands down my very favorite season. But I just feel like the thing with Deb had higher stakes, because it's like we knew Brian was bad. We know and trust Dexter to take out the trash, like literally and figuratively. So it's like, I was like, oh yeah, that's a cool twist. But we knew that at the end of the season, Dexter's going to handle it. Like we can trust Dexter to make it all happen. But like with Deb, it was so like convoluted and so complicated. It's like, well, now what do we do? Because she's a good guy and oh God. And then she, goes off the deep end and stuff like that. So, but I love him being the brother and like having that backstory with like Laura Moser and all that. I like that tie-in a lot.
Just from my interactions with you in real life as friends, I know you're a big true crime fan. Do all your many hours of research help inform you when you're watching a show like Dexter? Because I am such a babe in the woods. I'm a dummy when it comes to watching shows where you're guessing who did what, like who's the real killer, all that stuff. I did not see the ice truck thing coming at all. Oh. Are you just trained at this point to see these things coming because you're such a fan of this genre?
Oh, I think so for sure. Like almost to what I might, like an unhealthy level, maybe. Like it's a little weird. Like I will figure out Dateline before the first commercial break. Like I've got it. Like I know what's happening. And that does come up a lot in Dexter. Like I swear I like know things I've heard detectives say and investigators say. And I'm definitely like, oh yeah, it's the thing. And then Ken's, over there like, what? And lo and behold, I'm correct. So I think it definitely does. So maybe that's why I blame Keith Morrison for ruining that reveal for me. It's his fault.
Yeah, well, if you and I are ever teamed up to investigate something, you're taking the lead, because I'm watching Dateline and literally after the last commercial, I'm like, well, I know he buried the bodies there, but I mean, there could be a twist. Like, let's see. The twist in this show is that congrats, Grace, you win round 4 and thus the match. I know it's an exciting moment for you. It was on. See, I didn't even see that coming. That's how bad I am at this.
Yeah, this feels right. This feels good. This is heavy. I don't take this lightly. Thank you.
We did have a question that we were going to ask just in case of a tiebreaker, and that was going to be the worst moment in the show. So Dexter is famous for being great and a groundbreaking show in many ways, but there are a lot of fans that left somewhat cold by a lot of the events, particularly in the later seasons in Dexter. So what was the worst moment in the show for you as a fan?
I think that Dexter has a couple low moments. I think it's hard not to for 8 seasons, which is a pretty extraordinary run. But there's a lot of highs. There's more highs. But for me, absolutely. And I know we might touch on the series finale, which is, just rough. But for me, the one that I hate the most, only because at least the end of the show was like a quick Band-Aid. What we had to suffer through for 12 episodes in season 5 was Lumen comes in and Dexter comes in. She's had this horrible trauma. He's had this horrible loss, and they're sort of like healing each other and falling in love, but in this kind of weird, dark way. And he's never connected with a romantic partner in a healthy way that's also a serial killer. There's a lot of serial killing in Miami, apparently. And it's like, you see this like build and this build and this build. And then literally at the end, she's like, so that was great. I'm going to go. And I was literally like, it was literally Bran taking the throne all over again. If I could take season 5 out of Dexter canon, I would. And quite frankly, season 6 too. But I was so upset because it was like earned. It was like, there was a lot of, I was like, this is okay. Like and then it was absolutely for nothing. I felt totally like the rug got ripped out from underneath me, and I'm still mad about it.
This is something I should tell the boss, Christian Rubalcaba, our beloved engineer and producer, that maybe put a pin in something like that, because we could have that binge battle at some point. What was the more disappointing series finale, Game of Thrones or Dexter? Were you a pretty, I guess, upset might be too strong of a word, but right, your feelings on the entire season finale that was Dexter?
Pretty rough for me. This is like, I know a lot of people are like, no, it was Game of Thrones, and a lot of people are like, no, screw Lost, they totally lost me at the end. Like I actually, Game of Thrones I had issues with, but I enjoyed. Like Lost I loved. This was absolutely terrible. I hate this finale so much. And it was just it was so jarring and off color, and like felt kind of strangely out of left field. Like it didn't feel earned. It was very kind of dark and heavy, which of course it was going to be dark and heavy, but it just, I did not like it. I still don't like it. I was doing a rewatch recently and I was dreading getting to that episode. It still hurts just as much.
You have all these series finales that maybe didn't stick the landing. You mentioned Lost and Dexter and Game of Thrones. Somewhere Jerry Seinfeld is just like, see, mine wasn't that bad, right?
I know. I haven't seen, this is terrible. I've never seen I've seen like here and there, but I didn't like officially watch Seinfeld, but I've heard I've heard some things.
Oh boy,
so
finally.
I know.
I have a
I'm so
TV
sorry.
leg up on Grace Hancock after all these years. Well, you are a winner once again. And so I guess we'll try to end it on a positive note, not talking about the worst series finale possibly of all time, but Dexter New Blood. As of the recording of this, I believe we're only one episode deep and they're releasing them weekly. So we're all kind of living week to week. How are you feeling so far about the potential of this new sort of reboot?
Yeah, it's like a sort of reboot, like sort of part 2 kind of thing. I mean, I'm really excited. When I saw that the episode has dropped, like I literally said to my partner Ken that, I was like, no, this is like my prequels. Like this is happening right now at 12:30 at night. So I was really excited. I was maybe ever so slightly lukewarm with the delivery. I felt like it didn't hit as hard as I wanted to. I felt like obviously I think we were all thinking that the boots were going to be Harrison. I think we were all kind of like on the same page with that. But I just felt it was very it just wasn't, it was super, felt kind of flat. Like he was just like, Dad, it's me. And he was like, well, I gotta go. That's not me. And then that was kind of the end. And I was like, I wanted it to be more of a thing. I wanted more emotional payoff. And I think we know kind of where this is going. So I'm totally hooked. I'm going to be there like absolutely every week. But I was a little bit nervous with that episode. I'm hoping that it like picks up and there's more of like a thing to it. But seeing Deb like blew my mind. I was like, ah! Like it's so, I loved that. That was maybe my favorite part is how they did that.
Yeah, and that was something that it was really interesting hearing Kim talk about earlier in our show today, where just having her around on set, the makers of the show were like, oh, well, I mean, you really just see Michael C. Hall just light up as Dexter, just being around that sort of energy. And so it really is nice that it's one big happy family on that show. Now, a lot of them may not make it through to the end, but it's still, it's a nice celebration of something. And you're just is it going to be torture for you waiting a week for each new episode?
Yes. Are you kidding me? I'm like a redheaded rage monster. Like if I don't have it 5 hours ago, I'm already mad. So I'm like, it's going to be torture because it'll be airing until January of next year.
She is a sweetheart. Don't let her fool you. And as is Kim Potts. And so I'm bummed that either Kim had some sort of a thing in her computer that was a glitch or Grace stole her modem because that's how bad Grace wanted to win. But either way, you're the Binge Battle winner.
Well, thank you. And Kim was great. I really enjoyed her perspectives on things. It was fun. It's fun. Like I like talking about TV like this. Like this is Grace nerd stuff, and I'm happy. This was a lot of fun.
And if you want to go a little bit further back in the history of TV, Kim Potts has a great book that you can check out from Grand Central Publishing about the Brady Bunch called The Way We All Became the Brady Bunch. And for more on her, you can check out KimberlyPotts.com. Grace, where can everybody find you and all the cool things you're working on? I know you always have a million projects that you're juggling. What's the latest and where can all the folks follow it?
Yeah, for sure. You can follow me online everywhere on socials at Mrs. Graceface everywhere. I have a horror film, Pretty Boy, coming out earlier in the year next year. And then I have a film coming out on Disney Plus, which will now be more expensive. I'm very sorry. But I have a film coming out on that probably later of next year as well. I was just on Truth Be Told on Apple TV Plus. You'll see me on shows here and there. So come and find me. I'm a lot of fun.
Working too hard. Oh, but I see these streaming recommendations you have because we always want to get streaming recommendations to say. Now, you said you've never seen Seinfeld yet. I'm looking at a streaming recommendation of yours that seems like maybe you should have seen Seinfeld already.
I know. Well, it's Curb Your Enthusiasm, which also kind of feels like sort of a cop-out recommendation because I feel like everybody kind of like knows about that show, but maybe not. I have people who will explain the references to me in Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I love that show. It's very funny. It's really, really, I like that humor, like very dry humor. It's good. And again, doing it after you've done a long Dexter rewatch of 8,000 hours of murder, it's like probably a good, like balancing, like good to balance out that content.
I don't hate a crossover style show where Larry David is a serial killer because I could very easily see him just be so annoyed with the everyday quirks that people have and he just ends up burying the bodies. I mean, are you telling me right now that his buddy Jeff would not help him bury whatever he had to bury in the desert?
100%. Him, Leon, I see the whole team like being like, all right, fine, we got to bury this. Like, all right, would watch.
And I love that you're also a fan of What We Do in the Shadows. And programming alert, we also, the podcast that I'm lucky enough to host alongside the great Jacqueline Coley, Rotten Tomatoes is wrong. We just had Harvey Guillen, who of course plays Guillermo, the familiar on that show. We were talking about the movie Selena, and he was such a delight to talk to. And so it's What We Do in the Shadows, meeting Selena, meeting Dexter, this binge battle. There's just a whole lot of fun stuff happening all over here, wherever you enjoy your Rotten Tomatoes content. Once again, Grace Hancock, thank you so much for joining Binge Battle, and I look forward to seeing both you and Kim again. We'll find another show for y'all to have your rematch.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. This was so much fun.
The fates aligned, and that's the way it goes here at Binge Battle. On behalf of Christian Rubalcaba, the boss man, I am merely Mark Ellis. For everybody here at Rotten Tomatoes, our incredible competitors, Kim Potts and Grace Hancock, thanks so much for tuning into this episode, and we'll see you soon on a new episode of Binge Battle.